and to be exactly what you want to be without all of the fear around you. We have to stand up together.
Welcome, everybody, to the Chairman Project podcast with Jason Sisneros. Those of you that are listening to the replay or on Spotify or wherever else, you can always join us live for a live conversation on Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. to 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Every single Saturday, so you could be part of the conversation live. It's kind of like a radio show. I kind of dig it. We always get to bring people up. If you have questions about business or life or whatever you're going through, we have a great conversation here with an amazing host and of characters, is how I would put it. And we bring in some interesting co-hosts. We have great conversations. The idea around this every single week is for us to have conversations about business, how to elevate your distance from the wolves and how to get closer to your own version of economic freedom, and the strategies and conversations to be able to get there on your own. I'm super excited this week. This week's title, we're going to be talking about why businesses die. And it's been like 3 days in the making for this particular show. And because if you think about the game of business, right, when you look at the environment, right, if you look at it and you go, okay, what does it look like, this idea of business? Well, it's 33 million entities in the United States. Many, many more around the world. And we're starting to get some international attention and some people that come in and hang out with us or listen to it when they wake up or as they're going to bed in their respective countries. But the idea is to survey the environment and go, okay, where do I fit within that? What am I doing personally? What is my particular outcome? And the only people that really are following me or listening to these shows are people that are looking to build their freedom economically. There's a lot of different ways to think about this. You got, in our country, you have freedom of speech, you have, the Second Amendment, you have the First Amendment, you have all these things, but we hyper focus here because we know that without any financial strength, that we're going to be beholden to someone else, right? And that is what we're trying to avoid. That is what ethical capitalism sets up for us, is the opportunity, the ability for us to be free of the influence of other people who don't have our best interest in mind, right? That's why I love business. I'm so passionate about this concept, this idea that came to fruition, that we could build our own destiny. We could forge our own path. And the way that we could do that is by looking at what talents we have, looking out into the marketplace and seeing what is the need of many people? And then what can I do, the person in the mirror, to be able to get better each and every day so that I could serve that group better, and then surround myself with a team of people who are like-minded. And now you go from one person serving your particular, your particular tribe, to 2 people, to 3 people, to 10 people, to 50 people, to 100 people, right? And the group of people that we're talking about is designated worldwide as an SME, small to medium-sized enterprises. I want to talk about that word small just for 2 seconds as we enter into the content that we're going to talk about today. Do not think of yourself as a small business, right? This is a big mistake, right? Because you have to always and constantly be building the business that you want to become. You always have to step into that role. We call it, in our community, we call it the end game. You start at the beginning right? Where you are, you go to the end and you say, okay, what does this need to look like for me to have my freedom? Because then you can become a freedom fighter for other people, for other causes, or you can just enjoy that freedom. You can sail around the world. You can do whatever it is you want. The outcome is not it's not important to me because it's your outcome, right? It's important to me that you're be able to achieve it, but I'm not going to tell you, right? There's a lot of people that tell you have to end up in a Lamborghini. You have to end up in some fancy house or 12 houses or whatever it is. That's up to you. What I talk about is the tool. What I talk about is the machine. What I talk about is how we put this together, and as a community, how can we do that together and why? Let's talk about why for just a second. The why that we do this particular podcast every single week, the Chairman Project. What is the Chairman? It is ultimate freedom, you sitting over your empire and directing traffic. Okay. That's all it is. Chairman, chairwoman, chairperson, whatever you want to call yourself. So on that journey, why are we doing that? Why do I need, we end up with however many people show up here live, and then however many people listen on replay, and however many people share this out over the time. It is us reaching out to each other. It's a network of people that are doing business with each other. We're listening to each other. We're having conversations. We're elevating our own game so that we can keep the entity alive. Now, what do I mean by entity? What I mean by entity is that 33 million, that web of 33 million SMEs in the United States, and then multiply that around the world that can do business independent of a centralized government that would want to control you and tell you how much you're worth and how much you're going to get given as a stipend week to week, right? Or unethical businesses that you're going to have to work for because there is no opportunity, right? And they're going to give you a predetermined stipend. They're going to arbitrarily decide how much you're worth. With a small business, with a medium-sized company, with a business, with this ethical capitalism idea at all, you get to be the arbiter of your own destiny. It's so important that we keep it alive, and that we keep that alive by doing business with each other. Look at some of these massive companies. Maybe you can not do as much business with them and start doing business with somebody else, right? Maybe you can focus your excess capital back into your business as an investment to grow it, right? Everybody talks about the stock market and Bitcoin and all of these other speculative areas. What is a better, more controllable, more predictable outcome for growing your capital than what you have your own hands on? If you don't trust yourself, then guess what? If you don't know the strategies, if you don't understand how to build a business, then you look at that excess cash like the rest of the world, that ends up broke, by the way. They end up broke because they take that excess and they go buy shit that they don't need to impress people they don't like, right? That is what typically happens in the world of finance, because we don't understand. That's not this group of people. That is not the chairman, the Chairman Project. That is not the journey that you happen to be on. So we're here today to talk specifically about why businesses die. And I was so excited to talk about this because, sorry, let me take a drink of coffee here. So excited to talk about this because when you think about 33 million businesses, 95% of them are out of business in 10 years. You've got 50% of them that are gone in a year. And if you look at, there's basically, as I was looking at this and having several conversations this week, basically I say 18 months. In the title, I said, in 18 months you fail, and then it takes you 5 years to figure that out. It's actually worse than that. Most companies fail in the first 90 days, right? And they're just riding or sitting on a dead horse, right? They're sitting on a dead horse, but they don't realize it yet. They think they're moving. right? Because everybody else is passing them and there's activity around them and whatnot. But the first 90 days of how you build your business, the understanding. And so I want to reverse engineer. I want to go all the way back to the beginning. I want to give you an idea. We talk about the end game. Number one, what is your particular end game? That end game has a number attached to it. And those of you that have been longtime listeners and we've been around each other, or you're a graduate of mygrowthcourse.com deal, or you've been somebody who's come into Anton J and you've gotten a deep dive, you understand this. And you've actually gotten it written down on a piece of paper. And I know a lot of your end games because we're in relationship, right? We're in relationship. And so I want to talk to some people that may still be out there, right? You own a business and now you're like, man, I need to learn some more stuff, because you've realized as an intellectual, this thing that we play is an intellectual sport. This big thing called business is an intellectual sport. Make no mistake about it. We look at all of the different sports around the world. We look at all the different things and we go, oh, they're playing a sport. Guess what? We are playing a sport as well. And guess what? Your excess capital, the one kind of cash that you're looking for your machine to create is that excess capital, right? You have profit, right? You have operational capital. And then you have the kind of capital that you can take off the table, put in your pocket, put towards your retirement, put towards your end game, put towards your boat that you want to sail around the world, whatever that is. Free cash flow. Okay. Free cash flow. And that's the machine that you're building. And you're building that in an intellectual way. You are using your brain, you are using your strategies, you are using your influence, you are using your relationships. You are constantly getting better as a business athlete. Think of yourself as that from now on, right? As a business athlete. And so if it's an intellectual sport, then what you know has gotten you to where you are right now. And if you pause just for a second as we move through this content and you think about the house you live in, right? The vacations you're able to go on, the charities you're able to give money to, the amount of money that if you were to go in and click into your bank account right now and look at that bank account and the amount of people following you, i.e. Clients, customers, employees, social media following, all those kind of things, and you were to click in and to look at all of that, right? Here's what you would find is you would find your intellectual level. Where is your intellectual capacity? Where is your intellectual capacity? Where is your intellectual knowledge as a business owner, as playing the sport of business? That is the result. And we don't think that way sometimes. The world doesn't tell us to think that way sometimes. We want to look at all the fake stuff. We want to look at people on Instagram and we want to look at, oh my gosh, look at that house that they rented but didn't tell you. That car that they're driving that they're late on the payment for that they didn't tell you, right? This is an intellectual sport that you are playing, and you can get better as an athlete. Just like an athlete gets, you get coaches, you get information, you get all of that kind of stuff. And so today I want to talk a little bit, and I want to give you a couple of perspectives. And then as usual, at the end, what we do with the live audience, we kind of cut this off in the podcast because, the sound doesn't come through and whatnot. But if you ever want to be here live, just join us 9 a.m., start sharp 9 a.m. every Saturday. And we go to about 10:30, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. But we talk about these things at the end. And I love those conversations because you get to hear from business owners that are currently in the game. We don't have anybody showing up here live that's not in the game. We don't have anybody that shows up here on Saturday that is not an athlete, that they don't view themselves as an athlete, that aren't trying to improve themselves, that aren't trying to take their game to the next level. We don't have anybody that shows up here that's just an observer, a casual observer of life and of this sport called business. Okay, so I got to thinking, to myself, I've been around the game a long time. I've been around the world. Tony and I've been at many events together. We've traveled the world. A lot of people that are in here, I've met in real life. I've hugged, I've high-fived. We've had conversations on the phone. And I got to thinking about the people that do fail in business that aren't here on Saturdays. And I got to think about some of the things that they say. And then we're going to dig into it. What do they say? Because what you say, either to yourself or out of your own lips, is a representation of your own beliefs. And if the results that you have right now, the house you live in, the amount of freedom that you have, the amount of money that you have in the bank account, if it's not satisfactory, then there's a gap between where you are and where you want to go. Where you want to go is the end game, and you reverse engineer to where you are right now, and you realize a couple of things. If business is an intellectual sport, I don't have the proper information. Now, I may have the proper information, but it's overflowing and I'm overwhelmed with what I'm supposed to do, which means you don't have the sequencing, right? You don't have somebody that has taught you how to line those things up in the right sequence, and you don't know how they interact with each other, which I call interconnectedness. Okay. And so you don't know these things. And so you're out seeking it. Hi, my name is Jason Sisneros, founder and chairman of Anton J Global, a world-class business consulting company that has helped hundreds of clients and thousands of growth course students fix, scale, and successfully master their businesses. To put it simply, my team and I help people turn their businesses into machines that create cash. To better support startups and other mid-sized companies, my team and I developed a phenomenal and comprehensive digital growth course where I poured decades of business ownership and know-how into 20 hours of content. This course is not easy. It's not an easy pill, but demands real work from you to implement the blueprints that I've developed. We know that reaching financial freedom is never easy, but totally worth it. Go to growthcourse.com right now to learn more about the course and get started on your business journey today. Now, the professional will take the information that they get, figure out where it goes in the sequence, and actually do something different, right? We have a do something different challenge basically every week. We say, okay, take this information, apply it to your own business and see where you're at, so that you're doing something different. Because if you continue to do the same damn thing, we call it, there's, fortune cookie wisdom, right? Tony and I talk about this a lot, right? Fortune cookie wisdom. You're going to do the definition of insanity, for instance, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. Hey, that's fortune cookie wisdom. But if you dig into it, it's true. It's true. And a lot of people run around this world expecting some magical boat to float in to change your outcomes. Some magical boat's going to come in and they're going to sprinkle some fairy dust on you. And all of a sudden, you're going to make that $1 million that you've been trying to make. You're going to take your business from 100,000 to 200,000. No. That's not what a responsible human being does. They look and they say, I am where I am because of my own decisions. Now, when you're faced with the opportunity, right, we're here to talk about why businesses die. When you're faced with the opportunity or the thing that shows up that says, okay, I've got some new information, a new way of thinking, something I can do differently. I hate the word dumb, but if business is an intellectual sport, let me use a different word. The uneducated, right? How do they normally respond? Right? A lot of people pride themselves in their skepticism, right? They pride themselves in their skepticism. I can tell you that I have invested over $1 million in my own education. I came out of high school. All I knew was a family that was a criminal family. All I knew was the wrong ways to treat people. All I knew was the wrong ways to make money, dealing drugs, beating people up that didn't pay for their drugs to get paid for beating the people up. That was my education. And so damn straight, I knew at some point in time, you realize that's going to end. Everything has an outcome. And I can tell you that my friends and the people that I grew up with are either dead or in jail. right? They're dead or in jail. So that had an outcome. And I'm like, that's not the outcome I want. It was my son being born that switched that thing in my head, because I knew that would be his destiny as well. And so I wanted to change that up. Well, I had to get new information from new people and to be able to structure that. But what did I start to think? As I look back at the younger me, what did I think? And these are the things that keep people from their end game, right? Oh, I can't afford to go to that seminar. I can't afford that piece of information. I can't afford these things. I'll do it later, or I don't have any time. I don't, maybe I don't deserve it. That's for other people. I'm not sure that this is going to work. These are the things that keep you from changing your behaviors, right? You got to change the belief first. That then affects your actions, which then affects your belief, which then affects your results. Your results don't magically fix themselves. And this is why most businesses are failing. 95%, y'all, 50% in the first year. And the ones that are in existence are limping along. They're limping the fuck along. There's so much potential in each and every one of your businesses. There's so much potential in what you do, but you don't want to learn structure. You don't want to put processes and procedures in place. You don't want to structure those things. Because it's unfamiliar. And the human nature is we don't want to fail. Mastery means failing small, improving little bit by little bit, incremental improvement. Incremental improvement means you can't have incremental improvement without incremental failure. And instead, we label ourselves when we fail. We go, I'm a failure. And then we don't want to do that shit anymore. And so we limp along little by little by little and do the same thing over and over and over again. And we wonder why our businesses either fail or are not producing what we want them to produce. This is an intellectual sport. You have to expand your mind if you want to reach your end game. Let me give you a couple of examples before we get into it. Okay. And by the way, those of you that know me know that I've got a nickname floating around out there as an architect of businesses. And so I started thinking about that title. And I started thinking about that as an identity for everybody that listens to my show and that we talked about and people that come and listen on Saturdays. And I started to think about that. And I was in San Diego, this last weekend or a little bit over that. Had just completed, our undercover rescue of children that are being trafficked in the sex trade. And so I take my wife and who's also on the team, and we go out and we have to reset after seeing the things that we see, after getting no sleep, after being in highly intense situations, right? After eating terrible food because we're up and we're always alert and all these kind of things. So we take a couple of days. And this particular time we went to San Diego and we were walking around. We stayed at the Dell and we were walking down the beach one morning, no shoes on, just enjoying the sunshine and each other's company and a delicious cup of coffee. And I was walking along and I saw this guy building fancy sand castles, right? And on the big sign, it said, "Do not touch," because it was sort of an attraction, right? It was an attraction. And I started thinking to myself, man, it's the same process for somebody to build a sand castle as it is to build the Taj Mahal. Now, those of you that have been to the Taj Mahal or can Google and look at a picture of the Taj Mahal, it's one of the 7 wonders of the world. And you don't have to not touch it, right? It's not going to, if the water came up and hit it, if it got hit by a sandstorm, if it got hit by some sort of earthquake, something that comes at it, it's not going to fall down. This guy had a sign that said, you can't touch it. And every single day, it was away from the water, by the way, but if the water would have hit it, it would have knocked it down. But every single day he had to come in and he had these intricate tools, right? To be able to reformat it, because just the wind and the rain and the general process would destroy what he was working on, because it was built out of sand. And I thought to myself, what a great example of most people's businesses. They've built a business out of sand. They've built a business because they learned a couple of things and they do those couple of things. But if the water comes in, if there's something that occurs in the economy, if they have an employee that goes away, if they get sick, if there's something that happens, like being called non-essential, right? Then whoosh, everything that you built goes away. And that is most people's businesses, because it depends on you, right? Because it depends on you. A business is only a business in my definition of the intellectual sport that we play. A business is only a business when it can behave and operate without you. That's the goal. That's the outcome. You like it, you don't like it. And I can hear people's, responses. Oh, no, Jason, I've been doing this by myself and I've been doing it and I've got the money to prove it. And I'm able to make my house payment. Yes, you are, because you own your own job. Again, I'm not here to beat anybody up. I'm here just to say, change your perspective just a little bit. Tweak that belief of yours just a tiny little bit to understand you are where you are because of your own behaviors, because of your own beliefs, because of the way that you think. And if you look at your business and you go, and some of you are out there, like, because I know you're intellectually honest, some of you are saying, you know what, Jason? My business is absolutely a sandcastle, and it's not even a sandcastle built by a professional. It's just sitting at the water's edge with some buckets that I stacked bucket shapes on top of. And I know that the next wave that comes in is going to knock it over. That's what this show is about. That's why I get so passionate, is because I know how to help you architect your own Taj Mahal. That's going to look different than mine. It's going to look different than Tony's. It's going to look different than your neighbors. It's going to look different than everybody else's out there. That's the beauty of this. You use the architectural tools and knowledge to be able to build your own Taj Mahal, something that will stand the test of time, something that will look beautiful to you because the outcome, it's producing the outcome. We only get sad or upset or angry with our businesses or disappointed or overwhelmed with our businesses when it's not producing the expected end game. That's why businesses fail. Most businesses are sandcastles. The good businesses that you read about, the good businesses that you hear about, the good businesses that are actually able to sell, which is less than 7% of companies that are ever put on the marketplace ever sell. Why? Because they're trying to sell a sandcastle and call it beachfront property. That's what they're doing. Okay. So let's talk. So those things. The process, just understand, the process of building sandcastles and the Taj Mahal is the same. The building materials. I want to give you two examples really quick. I just picked a couple. Okay. One is Patek Philippe. And I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's a watch. Okay. It's a watch company, Patek Philippe's. And I want to give you an example of one particular watch that they built. That watch is called the Grandmaster Chime. Okay. And anybody, you can do your own research and look at this. I used to be a watch guy. I still have a bunch of them. I never wear them anymore. Every once in a while, like my wife just bought me this incredible watch. So I wear it when I'm on stage now, not because it's fancy or whatever it is, but I wear it because it's a gift from my wife. But I, at the end of the day, I used to be a massive watch aficionado because I thought that whatever I had on my wrist was going to prove to everybody my worth, and they were going to like me and they were going to want to be like me. And it's all stupid bullshit. But let's talk a little bit about Patek Philippe for a second, and specifically the Grandmaster Chime. Okay. 7 years to develop. 7 years to develop the Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime. It took 100,000 hours. And I want you to write down just take out your phone really quick and get your note section up really quick. And I want you to write down the next 3 words I'm about to say. It took 100,000 hours of development, production, and assembly. Okay. It also has 1,366 parts that were machined specifically for the outcome of it to be called a Grandmaster Chime. It has in horological terms, right? Horological is just watchmaking. In horological terms, it has 20 complications. Okay, 20 complications. A simple a watch in horological terms is one that has the 3 basics. It has the second, the hour, and the time. Right? That's a simple. It has no complications. This watch has 1,366 specifically machined parts and 20 complications. Sorry, the 3 are hours, minutes, seconds. That's what makes a simple complication, right? Each one of those there was 7 of these made. There were 7 of these made at the cost of $31 million. Okay? Each. $31 million each. 6 of them were sold before they were done being built. 6. The 7th one sold very quickly after. But that means that 7 watches were sold for over $217 million. $217 million created from a watch. We're going to get into why here in just a second. But now reverse engineer, because all that watch is, and by the way, you can buy a watch, I think, for like $20. What does the watch do? Think about it in terms of what you do for a living. Okay. If you could describe it simply, what is it that you do for a living? I don't care. It could be selling life insurance. It could be, designing, the interior of a home. It could be building the home. It could be making windows for the home. Whatever it is, you could be a coach. Whatever it is that you do, there are a shitload of people who do what you do. And if you're not the lead horse, the view is always the same. I heard that yesterday and I loved it. Right? So you look around and you go, whatever it is that you do, right? If you're not the lead horse, then this view is the same. You're looking at somebody else's ass. Why? This is a watch. All it does, guess what? All it does is tell the time. The same thing that every other watch on the face of the planet does. But these 7 were made and somebody paid $31 million before the damn thing was built. 1,366 parts. Let me get into why it was that way. Is because the outcome that somebody was expecting from having that. You didn't hear somebody go, well, that's too expensive. They're like, so what? Get the hell out of the way. Somebody's going to pay this. You didn't hear somebody, can I make some payments on that? Right? You didn't hear like all of the things. You didn't hear the typical things. I can't afford it. Well, you're not even going to be in the conversation. Well, I'm going to do it later. No, you're not, because they're already all sold. Well, I don't have any time. Obviously, you don't have any time, and they're already gone because 6 of them were gone before they were sold. I don't know if I deserve it. Well, guess what? You're not going to be wearing it. I don't know if it's going to work. Well, how you don't know that it's going to work? It's got 1,366 parts. There had 20 of the greatest watch horological engineers that were working on it. You don't think it's going to work? All of those excuses caused only 7 human beings in the world to be walking around with that watch on their wrist, or probably in a safe somewhere, I would imagine. But it had 1,366 parts. Let's get into why, right? When we talk about your business, I usually use the number 18. Now there's 40, okay? There's 40 parts of a machine that when built together end up being massive companies, right? There's 40 pieces. 18 will make you legendary. 18 will make you legendary. But you have to formulate them. You have to put the hours in. You have to understand what the parts are that you're building. You have to understand where they go in sequence, right? When we talk about those 3 words that I told you to write down, which was development, production, and assembly, our words in the business world are strategy. You have to think about what it is that you're building as the best outcome for your particular people. Who are your 6 people that would pay you $31 million for what you do? Are you a business owner that's looking to build your company into a machine that creates cash? I'm Jason Sisneros, chairman and founder of Anton J Global, a world-class business consulting company that has turned around, merged, or prepped for sale hundreds of companies just like yours. I'm best known as the architect when it comes to fixing and building companies across the globe. My experience comes from owning and exiting over 20 of my own companies successfully. It's that real-world experience that I've converted into the ultimate blueprint that has saved and grown my clients' businesses. If you're tired of getting bad advice, have bought all the books, all the coaching programs, and still aren't seeing the success that you were promised, it might be time to work with a team that has actual experience and a track record of success. Please scan the QR code or visit antonj.com to schedule your free 15-minute consultation to see if we can help you reach your outcomes. That's antonj.com, ANTONJAE.com. Development, production, and assembly. It's strategy, build, execute, measure, and modify. And then it is accelerated by understanding sequencing and interconnectedness. That's how you machine a great business. And by the way, when you do that, you're building these parts and pieces to have nothing to do with me, right? To have done, write this down for yourself in your notes. I will build assets in my business that do not require me. They don't require you to be involved. If you don't have those assets in place, all you have is a sandcastle. What assets do you need to build? I can list them out. They're all in the growth course, those types of things. We'll talk about them over time. But there's 40 of them, and let's just talk about 4 pieces of them. 4, sales and marketing. I talk about these as the legs to the table of your business. Sales and marketing is number 1. Operations is number 2. Finance is number 3. And the longevity and the long tail on your business is culture and training. Okay? Just those 4. Let's talk about those 4 for a second. How much time do you build? Now, in each one of those, right? In each one of those, there's about 15 to 20 assets that you need to build that once they're built, don't require you anymore. Right? Sales and marketing, leg number 1, operations, table leg number 2, table leg number 3 is finance, table leg number 4 is culture and training. And when you build the asset, when you build the machine that is, think about it like that watch, 1,366 moving parts, each and every one critically designed by a horological genius that clicks in and works perfectly with the next piece next to it for the outcome of telling time. What is the outcome that your business produces for your target audience? How many parts and pieces do you have? Or are you operating a sandcastle like the one that my wife and I walked by on the beach? Are you doing a couple of things? Are you just juggling balls and calling yourself a business? And for the most people, I'm going to just say it, 95% of all of the businesses out there, yes, you have built a really, really nice, in some of your cases, sandcastle. I had the terminology the other day, right? That some of you are winning races. In other words, you're making enough money to support your life. You're winning a race at the Preakness, right? The Preakness, where they have the greatest horses out there. You're winning those races by riding a donkey. I heard that example yesterday. What a beautiful example. But it's not sustainable. That Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime, 7 years to develop, 100,000 hours in development, production, and assembly, 1,366 parts, 20 complications, 7 made in the world, $31 million a piece. 6 were sold before the watch was ever done, totaling $217 million of one product in one company. Now, how do you think that those people figured out? How do you think they got picked? Right? How do you think that those horological geniuses got picked? Because of their knowledge. How did they become somebody who got picked to work on that project? They learned from a master. They studied, they were understudies. They first and figured out that I want to be a master of the horological arts. And then they went out and found masters to study with until they were like, okay, I'm there. Now I get picked and I get to work on one little piece of the 1,366 pieces it took to build a $31 million watch. And then I get to move on. Business is not as difficult as building a 1,366 piece watch. Business is as simple as learning the 40 pieces, learning a little bit about all the 40 pieces, and then putting somebody who knows that better than you in each one of those roles. But you got to understand each piece. And how are you going to do that? Most of you are out there buying, guru information from some snot-nosed kid who's never owned a fucking business in his entire life because he's selling something called AI for business. You're buying shit from people that say how to be number one on Google. You're buying shit from people that tells you how to do my social media posts. And I'm not saying that those may not be one of the 1,366 pieces that belong in your watch. But I am saying you got to understand, you've got to be the person who sees the Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime in your mind first. That's your end game. You've got to be the one that can clearly articulate what your end game is. It's a paid off house. It's a paid off car. It's $1 million in the bank that's spinning off 10% interest. And it's 2 vacations per year. That's your end game. You got to know it. You've got to be the one that puts that vision out there. Or are you okay? It's okay. If you want to have a business that's built on the sand and you're just okay when that wave comes in and knocks the shit all down. Because for a period of time, you had something that looked cool. because for a period of time you had something that paid your bills. My belief is that if you're listening to me live, if you're listening to this on replay, if you're listening to me anywhere, you have higher aspirations. You're still in the game and you are seeking. You are one of the few people that has the common sense to know that in order to be a great leader, you've got to be a great follower. In order to be an excellent player of the intellectual sport called business, that you have to have coaches, that you have to have people, masters that are teaching you how to be excellent at what you do. That's what smart business owners do. That's what intellectual business owners do. And I picked another example. And I picked a guy by the name of Jerry Rice. I know Sid will appreciate this. I don't know if he knows Jerry or if he likes Jerry. It doesn't either way, but Sid was a high level coach in football. I picked Jerry Rice, and because I always admired him. I always admired his work ethic. I loved watching him. Yeah, he was on the 49ers. I'm a Denver Broncos fan. And by the way, the last team that he ever played for before he hung up his cleats was the Denver Broncos. And so we have that. But I always loved Jerry Rice. And if you get a chance to just go back and study, the guy was a Hall of Fame. He is a Hall of Famer, right? He's somebody that it represents the pinnacle of a game. Football business, okay? Just different games. The money that you make, your bank account is just the scoreboard from your business and whether you're playing the game at a super high level or you're not. I got to reading, some stuff for this show and I became I was already an admirer of him, but I became more of an admirer. He was the son of parents. His dad was a bricklayer. And when I say bricklayer, he literally built sandcastles, right? He built them with his own hand. 8 kids. And he was the 6th of 8 kids. His mom always thought, well, he wasn't tough enough. It was too rough of a sport to play football, but he finally got into sports. And his ability to be able to run that was first identified by his principal, who was trying to catch him because he was in trouble. And he was like, damn, that kid can run. That was the first time that his ability shown, was running away from staying out of trouble. But then he applied himself and he started playing football in high school. He won a bunch of awards. He went to, believe Mississippi, and he played football in Mississippi, and then he got drafted into the NFL, and now he's a Hall of Famer. And one of the things that he credits the most, yes, he had great work ethic. Yes, he put in a bunch of hours. But what he credits the most is the coaching that he got. He said several times in several interviews that he would not have been the football player that he was with all of his enthusiasm. How many people start playing the game of football and they think or want to be a Hall of Famer? Because that's the pinnacle, right? That's the pinnacle for a football player, is to be in the Hall of Fame. But then they get into it. They don't apply themselves. They don't get the right coaching. They think that they've got natural talent. They believe that just, hey, look, I'm on the field at least, right? Most of us in business think I'm on the field. It's doing what I want it to do. Like it's okay. But then that wave comes in, smash, you're out of business. A competitor comes in, sets up. There's a new piece of technology. There's some towers that get knocked down and the economy goes to shit. There's all these, everything you built goes away. But Jerry Rice sought out the coaches that could improve his performance even 0.0005%. Because he knew that the Hall of Fame would not be achieved without incremental improvement. He knew that the Hall of Fame would not be achieved without the proper sequencing of learning his skill sets. He knew that to be a Hall of Famer, he had to learn what was the foundation of football all about. And then to become a master of all the parts and pieces of the game called football. And now he can look back on his career because he achieved his end game. It was crystal clear in his head. He saw it. Just listen to his interviews. He saw it way before he was ever there. And then every behavior lined up: how he ate, how he slept, what he drank, who he hung around, who he chose as a coach. Everything was aligned to a very specific end game. If you don't have a specific end game, you are living in a sandcastle, waiting for the next wave to come up, or waiting for the next bratty little kid to come in and just jump on top of it. You take all of those careers, all of those coaches, all the hours that he put in when everybody else was partying, all of that stuff, and now the man, by all measurements, and it's still a little bit private, but he's got a net worth of $50 million because of how he played the game. Now, the title of this podcast was why businesses die. I just gave you a bunch of reasons. Most people are building sandcastles. They don't vision themselves as an architect of their own business. And if they do, there's all kinds of excuses that work for you. Because for most of you, you don't have a coach in your life. I have coaches. I have people that hold me accountable. I have people that I go to in times of question. I know that there are people that are further along than me, and those are the people that I seek counsel with. But we sit in our castles. We sit in our sand castles, and we think, I have a sandcastle because it exists right now. 99% of the people that you follow on social media, the people that you follow, are living in fucking sandcastles. And you're like, how can I build a sandcastle like their sandcastle? How about not build a fucking sandcastle in the first place? How about pick a Taj Mahal? Somebody or something that has stood the test of time, that's been doing this for years and years and years, that you can go there. They exist. Like I said, I've got growthcourse.com. You could go there right now. That's 28 hours of my best content. You could bring us in as Anton J to be able to fix your business. You could go to somebody in your own town that's been around for 15, 20 years and go take them to coffee. But you don't, because you don't have the time, because you don't have the money, because you don't think it's for you. Why not? You're playing the same game that Bill Gates is playing. You're playing the same game that Elon Musk is playing. You're playing the same game that Jeff Bezos is playing. Why are they kicking your ass? If you're not the lead horse, the view will never change. Maybe commit today to being the lead horse. And understanding that you too can put in 100,000 hours. You're going to put in 100,000 hours in this life. You're going to put in 100,000 hours. The next 7 years is going to go by. Are you going to be still living in a sandcastle, or helping somebody else build their sandcastle? Because yours got knocked over. Or are you going to go to your end game, build your Taj Mahal first in your mind, and then reverse engineer and architect it with horological geniuses that know how to build the Taj Mahal that became one of the 7 wonders of the world? Most businesses fail because most people fail and then quit. Most businesses fail because they're sandcastles. They're not businesses. They're not even building businesses. They may have some siding, and they may have some windows, and they may have some concrete, and they may have some rebar, and they may have some stuff, but it's all in a pile, and you're sitting there trying to stack it up going, you're building a business. No, there's a sequence to this shit. There's a sequence to it. It's not magical. From the time that the first goat was traded for the first egg, the processes, the procedures, the assets, and how to build them. The assets, once they're built, know how to stack them. They exist. And I'm not somebody telling you what to do. I'm somebody doing and then teaching what I know. That's every Saturday. That's the growth course, 28 hours. It costs over $750,000 to develop so that you could have some information to understand how to build your own Taj Mahal. I know you can't afford it. I know you don't have the time. I know all that kind of stuff. I get it. I get it. But this is why most businesses fail, because they absolutely refuse to put in the time, to put in the right time, to build the right pieces so that you could build your $31 million watch, so that you can have a Hall of Fame career that leaves you at $50 million net worth. And let me be very, very clear as I wrap up and we go into our conversation piece. Let me be very, very clear. I could give two shits about money. I could give two shits about it. It is a scoreboard on the game that you're playing. If you don't want to be excellent at the game you're playing, why are you playing it? The money is a tool for me to create freedom. There's nothing that could pop up right now for me, for my wife and I, that I would have to say I can't afford it. There's nothing that could pop up in my life right now that my wife and I would have to say we don't have the time. When the call came in for my wife and I to go undercover and go rescue kids, we didn't have to wonder whether we could take a couple of days off from work. We didn't have to wonder if we could afford to go. We didn't need to ask ourselves, could we afford to be able to donate in there in that process to make sure that the operation went off? We didn't have to ask ourselves that question. But I used to be a kid a long time ago that thought that dealing drugs was the right outcome. That used to think that beating people up for, because they didn't pay for their drugs was the right outcome. There's a journey you can go on. I'm not better than anybody. Matter of fact, one of the reasons I stay doing what I'm doing is because, for fuck's sake, if Jason Sisneros can do it, so can you. So many of you listening to me that I've met, that I'm looking at your faces here on this live podcast, are smarter than me, better looking than me, have better families than me, have a better foundation than I do and did. You can do it. This is about you. And the selfish reason, again, why I do this day after day and have these conversations, I'm still in the game at all, is because I need that. For the shit that I've built to stand up, I've got to make sure that the people around me are strong, that your small to mid-sized company is thriving. 33 million businesses. We need 60 million businesses. We need 70 million businesses. We need 100 million businesses. We need 1 billion businesses around the world of individuals who are constantly applying the necessary rules of being a good human being, falling in love with somebody else's outcome, really constantly looking in the mirror saying, how can I improve myself? And bringing employees in that we're treating as family and developing them into better producing human beings. so that the fucking world doesn't fall apart with a few governments and a few unethical capitalist businesses running the rest of our lives. That's why it's so important that you get your shit together, that you learn the right stuff, that you join this community and stand arm in arm with your brothers and sisters around the world to keep freedom free through the intellectual sport of business, to have independent access to capital so that you have your own choices to make. Your choices, not my choices. I don't want you to become like me. I want you to become the best you can possibly be so that my kids live and breathe free air. That's why we do what we do. And I appreciate each and every one of you that's here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I am so humbled all the time by the amount of conversations I get to have and with the people that I get to have them with. I'm so grateful for everybody that shows up, that watches this. If you're listening to this afterwards, I'm so grateful for you. If you're watching this on Spotify, if you're watching it anywhere, I'm so grateful for you. And I love you. I may not know you, but I love you because you're playing the same game that I am. And the outcome isn't just for you and your family. It's for families around the world to have independent access to capital. For you to be able to keep me free by you being free. We are interconnected. We all breathe the same air. We all have the same red blood pumping through our systems. But why not aspire to be better, to be a better version of who we are? You cannot be an ethical business owner and not be driven by love. It's impossible. It is one of the key components. You have to fall in love with your outcome of your clients. You have to fall in love with the outcomes of your employees. You have to fall in love with the outcomes of your community. You have to fall in love with the outcomes of your church. You have to fall in love with the outcome of your family. You have to fall in love with the outcome of different charities. It's a necessary piece. And so I already know that, whether you've identified that and been able to verbalize that for yourself, I already know that that's a piece of who you are, and I want to know you, and I already love you. So thank you, everybody that shows up here every single week. I love you. I appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next episode.